All right, welcome to the Underdog Ecom podcast, where two ecom brand founders are figuring out in real time.
Yeah, we're not here to preach. We're here in the thick of it, making mistakes, testing all sorts of ideas, and really sharing the journey of how we've been growing these brands from day zero. Hopefully, you learn a little bit, perhaps come away with some ideas that save you time and money. And so, if you're tired of the same glittery D2C advice from those nine-figure gurus, you're here in the right place.
Let's get into it.
All right, we're live. We're back. It is the Underdog Ecom podcast here. There's three of us today. Whoa. So stay tuned for that special announcement here, perhaps. Just a guest, just a guest. It is November. We've got the caffeine flowing and the sales rocking and all the things happening. So yeah, welcome. Welcome, Toby, to the pod. This is the pod. We don't know what we're doing. We're still figuring it out, but as you've seen already, we totally know how to do this. We're great. Welcome.
We're happy to have you here, though.
Yes.
Thank you. Happy to be here. Big fan of what you guys are doing and the podcast. One of the very few business or D2C podcasts I still listen to. So excited to be on and chat to you guys.
We're honored.
I just want to say, I think it's, if anyone who's listening, it's taken a bit of organization, this, because we've got David on the west coast of the US, me in the UK, and Toby in Christchurch, New Zealand. So like this is pretty good. I think for the first guest on this podcast to literally get three continents involved, I'm pretty happy about all this.
We got all humanity represented right here. Just kidding. Sorry, all the humans that are represented.
Three white guys. Yeah,
three white males. So pretty much all of humanity is not represented here.
I got myself into
the time zones. Yeah, that was definitely tricky, and that was quite the problem to solve. But yeah, Toby, welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Obviously, you work in the ecom world because you're on here. Otherwise, you'd have stumbled into a random Zoom meeting that you have no idea what we're going to talk about. But yeah, kick it off. How you doing?
Yeah, good. Yeah, happy to be here. So yeah, as you say, I'm Toby. From New Zealand. And yeah, I work for an ecom brand. Shakti Mat. Someone, some people may be familiar with that brand. They sell. Yeah, nice, love it. You've got one. Is it a real one?
Christmas gift. It says, I was going to add the F on the beginning of the word, but I'm pretty sure that would end up not being a good word to say. No, I've got the real authentic one. I got it as a Christmas gift last year. And I do like it. And I spend lots of time on it, laying on a bed of nails.
Love it. That's awesome. So work for those guys. The head office is here in Christchurch, which is awesome. They sell around the world. But then also run my own ecom brands. Got one brand that I run myself, a golf brand called Stick-Ins. It's a monopod, stick in the ground, record your golf swing. And then also help my wife run her baby brand. That's called Gobstoppers. It's in New Zealand we call them a dummy. I think you might call them that in the UK too, but pacifier for those in North America. And so yeah, it's just it holds one of those. We had it with our kids. Loved the product, loved the brand. And the owner was shutting down. And me and my wife were talking, and she goes, "Oh, this could be really big." And I go, "Should we buy it?" And so we brought that back. But it's a bit hectic. Trying to work a full-time job and run two brands, but we love chaos, right?
Yeah, that is definitely chaos. Trifecta of brands.
Yeah, it keeps me busy.
That's
for sure.
That's really cool. I didn't know you bought another brand as well. Was that easy to negotiate, or was it fairly straightforward, or not?
Yeah, it had its complications because the owner ran it as a business that had some debt and stuff attached, and
Right.
I was saying to her, like, I don't want to buy your business, I just want to buy your brand. You've shut down, you're not going to get anything out of this. I'd like to buy the brand. So there was a bit of back and forwards on that. But yeah, ultimately came to an agreement. And what I liked about buying the brand rather than just buying the IP or making the product and rebranding it was, it's been around for 10 years now. And so like you've got all of that head start. You can debate whether branding matters or not, but to me that 10-year head start, even though it's still a small brand, was pretty important to me. So yeah, and we just love the product, love the brand. Like I think it's hilarious that a baby product is called a gobstopper, like the lolly,
Yeah.
and yeah, so that was pretty important to me. Otherwise, I didn't see any point in trying to make the product under a different brand. Like it was really about buying the brand. So yeah, it's worked out well so far.
That's really cool. How
Yeah.
long have you had that?
So we bought it in March and relaunched in June. It's
Cool.
been up and down. Like there's a big customer base there, obviously from 10 years, but kids grow up, they grow out of dummies or pacifiers. So it's hard to obviously resell to people unless they're having new kids. But one of the one of the crazy things with it was when we were looking into the numbers and things, she had a 50% return rate, which is
Whoa.
just
Wow.
crazy to me. So
Yeah.
but it sort of follows the story that we had with it. So my wife bought it for our first boy. I think she bought it before the lady even had a website. So back in the day, I don't know what it was like overseas, but there were plenty of like Facebook groups and things where you would just buy random products off mums and things like that. So yeah, bought the first one off there, and then kids obviously get things dirty, messy, and you go to wash this thing, and your kids become attached to it because it hangs off the end of their dummy. And so it's a nightmare when you have to wash it. And so you buy a second one, so you got a spare. And so we did that, and then we had twin girls about 6 years ago, and like there was just no debate. Like we just bought one instantly for them, bought them a second. So yeah, that was something that I thought was really interesting. And the other thing was it was all organic. Like she really didn't do any marketing. Back in the day, it was just, word of mouth, Facebook groups, all that sort of thing. So I thought, I know what I'm doing with marketing. Turns out I don't, but that was my thought. And yeah, so yeah, it's been cool. It's been great. Like that's probably the brand I'm most passionate about. But as you know, it's hard to get a brand off the ground and running and growing. But yeah, I'm here for it.
And do you so obviously you're running the two brands. So are you sharing like resources among them in terms of like fulfillment, shipping? Are you doing any fulfillment yourself, or you got them at a 3PL somewhere? And also where like are you shipping just within New Zealand mainly, or actually like internationally as well?
Yeah, so I do all the fulfillment myself. Like it's still small. Like it's still a handful of orders a day. Like we're not at that point yet where I'm like I can justify someone else packing these. Yeah, in terms of share resources, definitely. Like, so I have basically a holding company. Like, I don't know why, but since I was a teenager, I thought, a holding company would be the coolest thing ever. So I've just sort of taken that and applied it to ecom or D2C. So yeah, share resources across there. The golf brand sells New Zealand and Australia. The baby brand just New Zealand at the moment, but like I say, like I'm most excited about the baby brand. I think that one can go, global. I mean, everyone probably thinks their brand can go global, right? But that one sort of has, to me, the most uniqueness or ability to scale across different markets. Whereas the golf product, there are other brands that make the same product. A couple of big brands in the US. So I'm happy to stick more to down under for those ones, but the baby brand, I'm like that one could be global.
Interesting. Do you like spend? Are you focused a lot on acquisition for that one, or is it kind of just like more hands off, more retention focused, or like what's your breakdown? Because I imagine super limited time. That would be the hard thing to do, hard thing to manage is the time.
Yeah, 100% acquisition. So yeah, as I say, like 10-year-old customer base, like a very small amount of those people, are from the last, 2 or 3 years and or potentially, had other children. So it's all new customer acquisition. all through Meta. Yeah, like we've been chatting a bit in Slack and offline about, do you need to be focusing on email and have like 10-step flows, or do you just need to be focused on trying to acquire new customers? And yeah, so that's my focus, new customers, and then knowing in the back of my mind that, the data says that people are likely to come back, buy more. And we do see that, we see new customers, and then like, I don't know, I like the dopamine hit of getting an order on Shopify. Like, you check it, but the first thing I always check for is like, what order is this? Is this their first order? And then if it's their second order, like, have they ordered like since June? So I know they're coming back from having recently found the brand. So yeah, but 100% focused pretty much on new customer acquisition.
That's pretty cool. What about like in terms of so you started that, you took that brand over this year, right? The baby brand, and then your golf brand. How long have you been going with that for?
So that one's been going for a couple of years now. And so that one, was like the first thing I ever got working. So I don't know about you guys, but tried a bunch of different things. Like I remember pre-COVID, I was trying to launch another baby brand for some reason, and then COVID hit and killed all that. And like I've tried a bunch of different ideas, but like ecom's the one I always come back to for some reason. So I finally admitted to myself that, this is what I like, even though it's hard. And yeah, and so I got really into golf content a couple of years ago. So YouTube golf was taking off. There were a couple of big channels already, but it felt like, there were just new creators and content, people coming into the golf space all the time. And so I got really into that, and my personality is, I can't just see something. I've got to try it. I'm like, oh, I could record a video on the golf course. No worries. And so I found, trying to carry around a tripod or just record, on your phone, it's pretty hard. And then I stumbled across these products, which, as a monopod. So it's just a stick. You stick it in the ground, snap your phone on with a magnet. Away you go, piece of cake. But I looked at the other brands that are out there and trying to bring them into New Zealand. And by the time you factored in shipping and all that, you were talking, it was definitely over $200, but could have even been up towards $300. And I was thinking, man, that's crazy. There's only a very small amount of people who are going to pay that. I'm not going to pay that. And so I thought, you could whip one of these together pretty easy, like a broom handle and like a bike phone holder was my first thought. And then my dad has a background in boat building, so working with fiberglass, carbon fiber, that sort of thing. And I was chatting to him about the idea, and he said, "Oh, I've got a carbon tube supplier. I'll get some tubes." I found a magnet. He put together 10 for me, so a prototype. And the idea was I would have one, and I would chuck the other 9 up on Facebook Marketplace. In New Zealand here, we have quite a decent buy-sell group for golf gear. Being a smaller country, 5-6 million people, like you can have one group that, reaches the whole country. So that's quite cool. So yeah, I just chucked them up on there, and other people started buying them, and I was kind of like, whoa, okay, maybe there is demand for this. So from there, I turned it into a real brand, which was February 24, I think, by the time I launched. I think I shared the website in the Slack group at one point, and I literally haven't touched it since then. So it's pretty janky. But it's a product people obviously want. So regardless of how shit the website looks, people are converting. So yeah, but that one's been going for a couple of years. That one's been more like a drop model. So I dropped that first 9, and then I dropped another, I think I dropped 10, just to make sure, people would actually buy them off a website. And then we just sort of built up from there. So, yeah, it's fun. It's, I go backwards and forwards on that one. I'm like, it's working. Oh, it's not going to work. Like, so yeah, it's good fun.
I find that it's challenging because so with ecom, there's always like a baseline amount of fixed costs, right? Like you've got Shopify, you've got a few other things, probably Klaviyo, which is, an arm and a leg. is it challenging to kind of just like keep it afloat to cover those fixed costs?
Yeah,
Because I don't know what the like rev threshold or level is, but it sounds like it's pretty small considering you've got all these other things going on.
yeah, it's pretty small. It's probably like between 1 and 2 grand, during the year, and then 5 to 10 grand during Black Friday. So I'm trying to scale that obviously at the moment. It's hard, with inventory. The good thing about the golf brand is it's all manufactured locally. So I know you guys have talked about it on other episodes. Those MOQs can be tough to navigate, and then like paying for inventory up front. So I'm pretty lucky in that regard. Like I'm definitely paying more, in terms of cost of goods, but I can order, a small amount. I literally ordered 6 a couple of months ago just to test a new product, or test a new version of the product. So that was really cool. But yeah, it's definitely a challenge. The high cogs there, and then shipping for us, like to Australia, is just crazy. Like it cost me $40 to ship one of these things, because they're, a big long pole, so you run into restrictions with airlines and things like that. So, but despite all that, like I'm still able to eke out a little bit of margin, somewhere around like 20-25%. So, yeah, it's good. And then, as I say, once you combine that into, different brands, then obviously you got a bit more resource. But it's definitely not 8 figures, and it's not paying paying the mortgage or anything like that.
Just for the love of the game. It sounds like classic entrepreneur business where it's like, I was doing this thing and there's nothing for this thing. So I made this thing. Boom, here you go.
I always used to like I always used to think those stories were bullshit, to be fair. I don't know if we can swear on here, but I used to think they were, right? Like people were like, yeah, I wasn't in it to make money, I just wanted to do this thing. And I'm like, but you're selling it, so surely you wanted to make money. So yeah, mine's kind of a hybrid of that. I was like, I definitely want to make money. I think there's an opportunity to sell this, but ultimately I just want one for myself. And if others want it, cool.
Mhm.
Let's make it available.
I think that's what's so cool about ecom, right? Is that there's the side of like you can bring something into the world and then you can very quickly show it to people, whether it ends up scaling massively or whether whatever. I mean, everyone has different paths with these things, but I think that is like it's got to be like one of the most like sort of like fun viral part of it, isn't it? It's like creating a product, bringing it out to people, showing it to people. I think it's like on like modern day version of just like taking something to like a market basically and just being like, this is what I got to offer. What do you guys think? So I don't know. I think it takes a lot of like strength as well, like mentally, in terms of, like to bring something out that you don't know how it's going to react with, and and then you start to learn all these problems as well, like you mentioned in terms of the shipping and how difficult that is, and you don't think about that necessarily when you start something, and then as you kind of get into it, you start realizing like how all these things affect things, and I think that kind of goes into my question in terms of like, because obviously you're working on a fairly like a big brand as well during the day, so how does that affect, like what do you see that's like working for them that are takeaways, and likewise what do you see that they're doing that you're just like, okay, this only applies to that size of brand. Like I shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah. It's twofold. Like there's plenty of things that you can learn. I think one thing I'm really finding, because I'm more on the operational side, so I work on the supply chain side, for Shakti, helping, forecasting, managing shipments into each market, that sort of thing. My background professionally is in supply chain management, so one thing I've found there is operationally, like I think things are fairly, similar across even industries, and especially, size of business. Obviously, the size of the problem, the more cost and risk involved. But that's probably the similarity I've found. And just being able to ask questions, be curious, pick people's brains. Like I talk to the I talk to the ads guys quite a bit. Ask probably stupid questions, but it's awesome to just be able to talk to those guys. And then on the flip side, I think you guys have talked about it, and there was a bit of conversation about email and Slack the other day. Like so many things that the big brands, the 8-figure brands don't apply to a smaller ecom brand. You can have, your 10-step email flow, but if you're only putting a handful of people through that, and converting it, like 20% or something crazy, or even lower, is it worth the effort? Like David, you asked me, with a baby brand, am I focused just on new customer acquisition? And it's like 100%, like find the one thing that works. Basically get rid of all the noise. But then I think, like, if you look at a higher level, like, new customer acquisition is so critical as well for a big brand. Like, this brand Shakti have been selling in New Zealand for 10 years now, I think it is. A massive amount of orders, massive customer base in the country. I think, I'm not sure if I can share this, but like at one point there was a stat of they reckon about 2% of the population in New Zealand had bought, a mat, which is crazy. But even then, new customer acquisition is still so crucial, even in, a 10-year-old market. And new customers still make up, the majority of revenue, the majority of orders each week. So yeah, I think at a high level, we're all playing the same game. We're just trying to acquire new customers. There's things that apply to 8-figure brands that don't to smaller brands, but then, I think you can learn anything, try anything, maybe strip things down. I've definitely done a little bit of that, like a stripped down version of things I've seen work, inside a bigger brand, that, can work for a smaller brand as well. So yeah. I don't know if
Really
that actually
interesting.
answered the question.
Yeah, no, for sure. What were you gonna say, David?
Oh, it's really interesting because it's like there's definitely things, and we've talked about this many times, where it's something that I've heard or seen online and try it with my brand, but it's not the right place or time for it for sure, and especially given the size and stuff. And there's so much nuance, and a lot of that nuance is lost, especially when you're reading through tips on Twitter or something like that, or some guru is sharing, this is the 40-step welcome flow you should have, kind of thing. And it's like, whoa, yeah, does that actually make sense? It's so hard to step back and kind of think about, like, does that make sense for this particular situation? Is this the right use case for it?
I also think that like that is so true, that, but I also think that what's really tough about ecom is like the amount you have to test things. And there's this kind of thing where a lot of things won't work for you, but there's this like unexpected stuff that does. And also it's almost like chicken egg situation as well, in terms of like you need volume to scale, but you need to be able to scale your volume. So it's like there's this whole thing about like I mean, like I have a problem at the moment, for example, where I for some reason organically we get quite a few customers in Asia, and they're always complaining about how expensive it is to ship to Asia, like Hong Kong, Singapore, places like that. And then I keep wanting to then be like, okay, well, maybe I'll just like set up like a fulfillment center in Asia. I actually did this once before and it was a disaster. But I keep thinking like maybe I'll send some stock to like Hong Kong or something, and then hold some there. And you go down into, and it just ends up being like a massive expense. But like there's all these things where you think about, well, actually, well, if I did have like the products could ship more cheaply to these customers, like maybe it would grow enough, and then I'd be able to build up like sales in that region, also stuff. And then it's like you have to try these things, and because otherwise you don't know, or at least sometimes you do, and you have to like pick your battles, I guess, because sometimes this stuff does actually pay off, and you're like, oh, I actually got like quite a few orders this way, or actually like it ended up being the right decision. And other times it's like a massive just like cost hole. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think sorry, for the bigger brands, like obviously testing is a lot easier, right? Because you've got more resource to test. You get feedback a lot quicker. Like that's a big thing. If I not so much anymore. I think I've got to the point where I've accepted that, I've got to let a lot go, and you've just got to focus, on what's working, or focus on what you've committed to trying, instead of chopping and changing. But yeah, I think that feedback loop for a smaller brand is so much longer than a big brand. So yeah, just trying to be mindful of that too. But at the same time, you're right, Jack, like if you don't try things, then how do you know? So how do you balance that to make it worthwhile? And bigger brands too were probably in that same boat at one point. Big brands didn't start out big necessarily. They had to grow. Like I know Shakti is an example of that. They they grind it for a long time to get to where they are. So yeah, it's always a trade-off.
You said you said you also like obviously your main thing is operations, right? So I'm kind of interested as well because I think operations is like a huge part of ecom, whether you're small or big. I think obviously it gets more complex, but I think there's always so many ways I think that you can be more efficient, whether you're a smaller brand or a bigger brand. And is there anything like any sort of things that you've kind of seen or like both like in your career or like specifically with in like with your own brand, anything like that, from like an operations perspective that like you've sort of taken like that you can move into like that you think is a really important way to approach things, whether it's like from a buy inventory perspective, whether it's like a fulfillment perspective, or like anything like that.
Um, I don't think I've got any examples or anything I've taken. I think my background in operations, definitely helps me on that side. Like, in my own brands, I definitely find that a lot easier. Although we source things locally, like for the golf brand, and then the baby brand actually is handmade. So, we procure the fabric from overseas, but then it's all handmade by my wife. So, um, but even that stuff there, like because that's my background, I just find that so much easier. Like, whereas someone who maybe is more creative comes in to an ecom brand is all of a sudden like, shit, I've got to do operations. Like, what the heck? Talking to suppliers can be tricky. So um, I'm sure there's a lot of things that you can learn and cross over. Like for me, the big focus is obviously on marketing and acquiring customers because that's not what my background is. So that's where I want to learn. But yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to like your personality, and then you know how much time or how much effort you have to put into learning the other side of things. I'm a big believer that you should learn, to do everything yourself. I think you've talked about that too, Jack. But you know, at some point, maybe that becomes a hindrance. So, you do have to outsource it. But yeah, I don't know. My background is just in operations, so I'm not sure if there's any value I've got to share there. That would be useful to other people.
I think the reason I was asking, yeah, I guess is because like I think David and I both have spoken a lot about stock issues we've had, like having too much stock, having too little stock. I think it's a big problem in ecom, but also like just for smaller brands, it can like destroy you basically if you like, and it gets really hard to deal with. I've been in situations I've had far too much stock. I've been in situations I haven't had enough stock. So yeah, I think it's one of the hard things I've certainly had to learn over time is like how to, even if we talked about like pre-orders and stuff as well, and like MOQs and trying to get around MOQs and trying to fund POs and payment terms, all sorts of stuff, because it's amazing how much of a difference I think it makes. Because yeah, I just think like if you're, I mean, I've literally just switched from like 30 days up front to 70, like sorry, 30% deposit on stock and then 70% before delivery to 70% on delivery. And like it's already feels like I just feel like a tie is slightly loosened around my neck because I suddenly don't have to like find the money a month or 2 months before a single thing is sold. And so like it's crazy how these like little tiny little things make a difference sometimes.
Absolutely. And I guess one of the actually, so yeah, talking operations, one of the biggest shocks for me was that that applies or seems to apply no matter what level of business you're at. So without getting real specific, those challenges still exist for Shakti
Mm.
for a big brand. So you know maybe that never goes away. If someone has cracked that code, they are probably sitting on it and not sharing with anyone because if you've cracked that code, I think you're winning. But I think there's obviously, as you grow and that you get more leverage. Maybe you can get to those better payment terms a bit quicker because you've got historical volume to back it up. Or like we said, you're able to test quicker. So as you grow, it probably gets a little bit easier, or there probably are some advantages. But I think those problems seem to exist, no matter what size of the business or those challenges. So I guess maybe that's one thing that, I've been able to take out of it then from the operational side is that, it's not confined to a small business. I guess it's just the size of the challenge. It's a lot bigger. So yeah.
I've heard that. I've heard that it's like, regardless of size, most of the issues that you experience and the roller coaster and the fires that you're putting out are basically the same. It's just whether there's like, 4 zeros on the end of it or not.
Yeah, yeah, 100%.
That's funny.
I've thought about that quite a bit as well because it's like if you think about like a daily budget in like Meta, for example, like you're spending maybe 100 or 200 a day or something. Like it is almost like just another zero at the end for us, like for like an adjacent brand that's just got like the hype because like the level of risk of spending 1,000 a day as opposed to 100 a day for you is like it like almost is like works out the same because like just like the amount like the profit loss and stuff ends up being the same. So it's crazy kind of how like they can like that volume game is like it's almost like an parallel universe of like identical paths, but one's just like you say, one at the zero on the end and one doesn't.
Yeah, yeah, 100%.
We're getting close to the end of time here. Toby, did you have any questions for us that you wanted to ask? I was curious about that.
Um, I don't know if I have specific questions. I think what I love about, listening to you guys and talking to you guys in the Slack group and that is like, um, I feel like you're, a few steps ahead of where I am. I've heard you, David, talk about like back when you used to do a handful of orders a day, and obviously, you've got past that now. So it's really cool to be able to learn from and talk to people who are a few steps ahead rather than, miles ahead because, while there's advantages in talking to people miles ahead, there's definitely a lot more advantage, I think, in talking to people who are a bit further ahead. So yeah, that's cool. I guess, I don't know, questions like I do have a lot of questions around like meta. I think everyone does. Like, uh, my my biggest challenge at the moment is like trying to scale spend. Like, I just seem to be stuck at a level of spend that um I I hate. Like I'm literally for the golf brand spending about $25 a day on ads at the moment and converting, two to five orders. So, but I try and scale that and I just get like nothing. Like I don't get any growth on it. I'm just like, how the hell does that work? Like it's crazy to me that, like you can't just double spend and double results. So yeah, I don't know. How did you guys navigate that maybe in the early stages going from, trying to grow spend without just lighting money on fire, really?
Wait, we're supposed to be able to do that? We're supposed to solve that situation? I feel like that's still been a struggle. I I will say November has felt, it almost feels like this November has been the first time where I've felt like things are working in terms of ad spend, and like I've gotten ads and I've been growing them and adding more to the budget, and like one of my ads, the ad sets that I've been working in, I've been increasing $50 every couple days, and it's been working and it's holding steady. And so there's so many different variables that come into play there. I think like some of it's like, does ultimately, like, do people really want this? And does the ad convince people well enough? And I think I've tried for years and years to sell things that I don't know that people really want. And so like that the ads haven't worked and the performance is not great and it doesn't scale. And it's like, that is, that's a million gazillion dollar question. It's hard to say like, if the golf sticks are what people want or whatnot. And I think that there is viability there, but it's kind of like at the end of the day, it depends. You kind of have to, there's an uphill battle, and it's going to be either a giant mountain you're going up or kind of like a hill you're going up. And so it really is product specific. And I think that we get so caught up and so focused on like the particulars of the ad account when, and this is easier to say when it's working, but like I think brand is more important. And there's the vague marketing term brand, but I think brand is more important in some ways. And it is really, really hard when you're at the tiny levels with ad spend. Like I don't even know, and I don't have all the answers. Like I don't know if that's worth it. Like I don't know if all those times, all those days, all the tens of thousands of dollars that I spent in ad spend in the early days, that probably should have been something else. Like maybe that would have been better invested into creating content. And that's actually been a focus over the last like month or two for me. And I've seen that pay dividends where instead of spending all my time in ad manager or whatever it is, like a lot of spare time there, try and refocus that attention on creating videos and creating content and that's kind of where the internet is right now. Like Instagram and stuff has changed so much over the last year. That's where the focus is. But like, yeah, I think that's my biggest like hot take on that is like, are ads really where we should be focusing if we're spending less than 100 a day and trying to solve that? I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like without that though, you know, is
Yeah.
there even
I
something
know.
coming
Like,
out?
what do you do? How do you get,
Yeah,
yeah, how do you get people? It's, yeah, I don't love Facebook, but I also know that I feel like Facebook is the biggest gas pedal for almost all small businesses.
yeah,
Meta, that is.
absolutely.
Go ahead, Jack.
But I think, yeah, I was going to just add on that because I think I agree with everything you said, David, on that. Because I think, and also like the feeling you have, Toby, because I've been there. I still feel that some, a lot in terms of, especially like slow times of year. It can feel like you are just lighting money on fire, or like there is no gas in the tank, and you're just pushing down on a pedal and nothing's going. So I think I can understand that. I think that the thing is that there's the product side of things, and I think there's also I've underestimated a lot how important like the market forces are in terms of for example, I've also seen things just like do a lot better this time of year than they were in September and October. So August, September, October were horrible. And as soon as
Mhm.
literally as soon as the first day of November started, like our sales have doubled since then or tripled since then. It's crazy. Um, and it's literally it's a consumer mindset, and I think that as I've been more and more in this, I understood like how powerful that is. And actually we're maybe in a kind of a soft economy at the moment, but it
Yes.
might be that it's kind of delayed, and it might be that the whole, that actually people still aren't going to spend until the last minute, and all this sort of stuff. And actually it does affect small brands. I think it does. I think the idea that this stuff doesn't affect small brands isn't true. I think it's people think about this kind of like these big macro things only affecting large brands. I think actually they do affect big brands. I think once you get to know your business, one thing I know, for example, is that coming into the spring and the summer, and then going into the Q4, like Q4 are the two biggest moments for me. And therefore I should just load everything into those moments, because trying to sell something in August or September, or trying to sell something in January for me is going to cost me twice as much. And so one thing I've really started to kind of think about is like, I mean, there are brands that I don't hear about, and then suddenly they're everywhere come November. They're absolutely everywhere. I can't get. I mean, there's like this cookware brand that I literally don't see, and then suddenly January, like November, every single YouTube video they're like an ad, and it's like because they know that they are like they're going to make maybe 60% of their year's revenue in Q4. And so that's something I think I'm trying to think about more, is like riding those waves more when you have less headwinds against you. And ads can work better in those time, and you can make more money in those times. And then if in those slower periods you have to try other things, like, and that's the other thing as well, is ecom is is fantastic, but it doesn't necessarily lend itself to every single scenario. And it might be that, that you can find wholesale that helps you in the slower months, or it might be that the
Pop-up
organic
shops.
content side, pop-up
Yeah.
shops, yeah,
Or
organic content side, yeah, any of that sort of stuff could be a better time of year. It could be better times of year where it might be that better ads isn't the right approach, whereas actually, November, December time might be, or it might not be. It depends on your company. But it's like selling Christmas trees. Like the typical example of selling Christmas trees, right? They put 99.9% of their budget into when people buy Christmas. Like they're not going to spend a single penny if they can help it outside of November and December, because like it just makes no sense. And so it's a very abstract example, but I think there's some learnings there, because I think that we all have that to an extent.
That's yeah. I mean, yeah, I think you've nailed it, right? Like, and the Christmas tree analogy was exactly where I went to. Like, you know, like you say, that's their focus all year round. Like, is it November? No, okay, that's not our focus right now. So, um, I mean, I think that's hugely valuable. I guess it probably takes a bit. You've got to light some money on fire probably to get to that point, to get those learnings. It's all par for the course, but once you get past that point, and I'm fortunate enough to be like 2 years in, going into a third year with one brand. So like, I know what works. I know what time of year is good. So yeah, I think that's massive. That's hugely helpful.
I'd say also, I think one thing that's really tough about, I think business in general, but e-com specifically, because it's an inventory based business, is like when things aren't going well, there's no like guarantee that it's suddenly going to go on the uptick. Like you hope November, December comes around, and people are going to start buying, and you hope all these things, but there is no guarantee. and it's scary, especially like like a Christmas tree company. You know, that's extremely scary because their whole year rides on 2 months or even like a month and a half, maybe, or even a month. And so like it's not that bad for us, but I think there's that risk and uncertainty for everybody. I feel it year round. I'm sure David does as well, and you, Toby. So I think it is tough, really tough on inventory businesses because you're buying inventory ahead of time, and you're just kind of forecasts are never 100% correct, and just kind of hoping that you've got it right, basically.
Takeaway: it
Yeah.
is very, very, very hard.
Yeah.
That's a
That's a
hot
good
take.
takeaway. That's a good takeaway.
Yeah. We know you have to run, Toby. Do you have any last thoughts for us before we close this out?
No, not really. Thanks for letting me come on. I think I've always loved, or I've always admired people who find their thing and just go after it, you know? And like I say, I kept coming back to ecom, and I finally accepted like maybe that's my thing, maybe that's what I want to work on. So
Nice.
yeah, that
Okay.
that advice of everything's hard, so choose your hard definitely applies. Like maybe ecom is a bit harder, but you know, if you like it, yeah, just keep pushing and you know, connect with people like yourselves, learn from people like yourselves who are, you know, not 10 steps ahead, maybe 3 to 5 steps ahead. And yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah.
Thanks for being
Welcome
on.
to the land of pain. All right, we'll wrap this. Thanks, Toby. Appreciate it. We'll probably have some more guests on in the future. So leave us a comment. Tell us what you think about this episode. Give us 5 stars on your favorite review app. And Jack and I'll be back soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.